it comes to the purchase of oil, just imagine for the moment, had we not bought oil from Russia, I think the global oil prices would have gone higher, because we would have gone into the same market, to the same suppliers that Europe would have done. And frankly, as we discovered, Europe would have outpriced us. We saw that in the LNG markets, where actually many supplies which were traditionally coming into Asia got diverted to Europe. And in fact, at least India was a big enough country to command some respect in the markets, but there were much smaller countries who didn't even get responses to their tender inquiries because the LNG suppliers were no longer interested in dealing with them. They had bigger fish to fry. So we've actually softened the oil markets and the gas markets through our purchase policies. We have, as a consequence, actually managed global inflation. So frankly, people should be saying
thank you. You've been doing service.
Yes, absolutely. I'm waiting for the thank you. I would like to believe that a lot of this is due to the brilliance of diplomats on both sides. But surely, if a relationship is so even, there must be a fundamental structural ballast to it which would keep it so even. So my suggestion, my inference from that is actually both sides recognize the importance of the relationship in keeping a kind of a continental balance, if you would, in that part of the world. Now, I also make this point that when we, here I speak not just for India, when countries east of Russia view Russia, for us Russia is a source of stability. Russia is not a revisionist power east of Russia.
It is west, though.
That might be your experience, or
I don't think I'm just wearing a Western hat on that.
No, but no, the contrast I would mark. But it is not automatic that if a country is perceived a certain way in the West, that logic would extend to the East. The perception in the East could be very different. In fact, it is very different. So I think when we approach Russia, because I'll come to the current situation, when we approach Russia, I think those 70 odd years of history and of working together and of what we call the steadiness is very much a factor in our minds.
So I'm going to ask you about relations with China. We've got quite a few things to get through, but can you give us a quick update on progress on the Himalayan border dispute? But then a slightly bigger question, which is, do you believe that China can accept India as a peer in its Sino-centric view of the world? Does it matter?
Well, let me start with the first part of it, which is what's happening at the border. As you know, we had a border dispute pretty much from the time when they had the revolution and we got our independence. It took about a decade for this to really come out. Initially they were a bit evasive about it. Their maps depicted the border in terms of their claims, and they avoided, engagement in the initial years. But by the second half of the 1950s, it was very clear to us that we had a very serious issue on our hands. And then in 1962, we had a border conflict, and they got the better of it. Now, from 1962, in fact, before the conflict, we had withdrawn our ambassador, and it was only 1976 that we resumed ambassadorial relations. It took another decade really for a Prime Minister of India to go to China and sit down and discuss the relationship with them. In the 1990s, both countries made an effort to discuss the border, but stabilize the border while it was under discussion. And the arrangements we arrived at in the early 90s, in 93 and 96 specifically, lasted really till 2020. That there were very specific arrangements about not bringing large number of troops to the border, and then there were further agreements about what happens when patrols interact with each other. So from 1975 till 2020, there was actually no bloodshed on the border at all. But then we saw in 2020, for whatever reason, the Chinese did not continue to adhere to the agreement, and we had a big movement of troops to the line of actual control, and eventually there was a clash. Quite a few soldiers died. And what that has done is it has really vitiated the relationship. It has vitiated the relationship, one, in terms of bringing back memories of a conflict and of sharp differences. But it has also raised questions about a neighbor. When you say, when you have an agreement, it's important that agreements are kept to. And when that doesn't happen, that too has consequences in terms of credibility and trust.
So you're making some progress in the talks?
The talks there are places where, because we responded again by moving troops in very large numbers. So what happened was we ended up with a number of points where there is very close-up deployment of troops, which is fundamentally dangerous.
Yeah.
And our efforts since 2020, since September, I met Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Moscow in September of 2020, and we agreed, okay, let's find a way by which both of us go back to our traditional bases, so that we don't have that very close-up deployment and all the frictions that arise from it. Now, since September 2020, we have solved a number of these situations, but there are some which are still under discussion. Okay. So this is still a discussion going on.
So what about the bigger question?
Now the bigger question, there is a certain reality, which is the rise of China. There's an equal reality, the rise of India. The rise may be different, the time frame may be different, the quantitatively or qualitatively they may not be identical. But the fact is, as two countries who are really proximate neighbors, who are the two oldest civilizations of the world, who have survived as nation states, who are in a way exceptional nation states because they are civilizational ones. I think there are realities that need to be recognized, and perhaps each one of us has some tradition of how we look at the world, but traditions at the end of the day also have to take into account contemporary realities. I mean, I am today the fifth largest economy. I am the largest in terms of population. The impact that India would make, I'm the fastest growing large economy of the world today. So those are realities that have to be factored in anybody's calculation, not just in China's.
Is there any evidence that you've seen in the government that points to Indian government indirect or direct involvement with the killing of that Sikh?
In this case?
Yes.
No.
None. Do you believe he's a terrorist?
He has a track record which is there in the social media, and that track record is a pretty graphic one. So I would leave everybody to make their judgment when about a person whose pictures are there with weapons, who has taken positions. I mean, the positions are not secret; they are very public positions.
Yeah.
But my response, to what Prime Minister Trudeau said, is that we have told the Canadians, look, I mean, first of all, because you got to understand the context. The context is that in Canada, we feel that the Canadian politics has given space to violent and extreme political opinions, which advocate separatism from India, including through violent means. And these people have been accommodated in Canadian politics. They are given the freedom to articulate their views. And not just that, it had come to a situation where the diplomats of my country, including the High Commissioner, we've had attacks on the High Commission, smoke bombs thrown at the High Commission. My Consul General and other diplomats were intimidated in public, on record, with no action taken by those who did this. This is a country where there is a previous history. For those who would be familiar with Lockerbie, we had a much bigger incident when an Air India plane, there were bombs put, in fact, on two planes. One fortunately landed before when the bomb went off, but the other one, there were 327 people who died when the plane crashed off Ireland. So given all this, I think it was important that, a country like Canada, I mean, they are a democracy, you are a democracy, they are a democracy. But freedom of speech and freedom of expression also comes with a certain responsibility, and the misuse of those freedoms and the toleration of that misuse for political purposes would be, to our mind, very wrong. Now, in the case of Mr. Trudeau, I have discussed it also with my own counterpart, I still do, and we have told them, saying, look, if you have a reason to make such an allegation, please share the evidence with us. We are not ruling out an investigation and looking at anything which they may have to offer. They haven't done so. Has India changed from the Nehruvian era? Absolutely. Because one of the assumptions of that era, one of the a thought which very much guided the thinking of the polity and its projection abroad, was what we in India, the way we define secularism in India. And for us, secularism doesn't mean being non-religious. For us, secularism means equal respect to all faiths. Now, what happened in reality, in politics, was beginning with equal respect for all faiths. We actually got into a sort of a vote bank politics, a minoritarian pandemic. And that, over a period of time, I think created a backlash. So a very powerful word in the Indian political debate is what is called appeasement, which is
We've got some track record on that too.
I'm speaking here only for myself. The direction in which politics went, I think more and more people started feeling that in a way, in the name of being equal, of equality of all religions, in fact, the biggest religion had to be self-deprecatory and play itself down. I think, a big part, I think, of that community felt it was not being fair. So the changes we have seen, the political changes and the social changes we have seen in the last years have been partly at a intellectual level, a reaction, and a political level, a reaction to all.
So do you think tolerance has gone down?
No, I don't think so. I think on the contrary. I think people today are less hypocritical about their beliefs, about their traditions, about their culture. I would say today, I think you used the word, what you said, Martin Wolf said, we are less liberal. I think,
and more efficient.
Yeah, well, that bit's I take as a given. But I would say we are more Indian. We are more authentic. We are not today either currying favor before a global audience or really trying to live up to some kind of left-wing liberal construct which a lot of Indians felt was not us. We have substantial technology and economic and commercial relations with Taiwan. And certainly, Taiwan has a reputation when it comes to electronics and, of course, more recently with semiconductors. So there has been an upswing in the levels of cooperation. As to a hypothetical scenario that you raised, I don't do hypotheticals.